lot of changes in Chicago last year, and one of the biggest moves of the offseason was the trading for Lonzo Ball, the former number 2 overall pick in the NBA draft. Lonzo's career to this point, it's hard to say it hasn't been a disappointment, but now it's more of a disappointment because he can't get on the court. Last season, he had an injury that at the time seemed marginal. It seemed like he could be back on the court fairly quickly, and then it just kept getting worse, progressively worse. And now he's looking at his second major knee surgery, and there's questions whether or not he can get back on the court this season. The Bulls are confident. That was the last report. They're confident they will see Lonzo, but they were confident last year. So it's hard for me to know for sure. The best of Lonzo Ball is already in the past, and we didn't even see Lonzo Ball at his best. Kyle, Lonzo Ball's career to this point, where do you stand on it?
Well, the first point that I stand on, as someone who has raised Laker fandom through and through, someone who said that I was totally okay trading D'Angelo Russell for Brook Lopez, because if the Lakers didn't draft Lonzo Ball over Jason Tatum, Laker fans were going to burn down the Staples Center. Just because people love a storyline too much, and he grew up in Los Angeles and playing for the Lakers and all that stuff. Totally cool with it. I know that in hindsight, that sounds stupid, but even though I'm not a Laker fan anymore, that Laker fan, with the information we had, we wanted Lonzo Ball and nothing more than Lonzo Ball. And we'd rather be losers with him than be winners with Jason Tatum, because Lakers fans are losers. We don't know how to win. But at the same time, the Lonzo Ball career arc has been pretty incredible up to this point. Like you said, so he had a meniscus injury back in January. They're saying 4 to 6 weeks. Then he was shut down for the season. Then he had it scoped. Now he's having another procedure. He said I was either at Media Day or on a podcast that it's like even doctors are kind of baffled by what's up with his knee a little bit.
Struggling to walk, struggling to run. Hasn't even really played basketball.
Yeah, I know I said he's in his 7th season now, and I feel like Lonzo Ball's a bit older. He's only 24 years old. So, like, there's still a chance that Lonzo Ball is headed towards what would be the quote-unquote physical prime of his career. Obviously, we know about LeVar. Obviously, we know about the jump shot. Obviously, we know about UCLA and the Lakers and Magic Johnson and the absolute chaos that those 2 seasons were. Both the season where he was a rookie and the one season where LeBron was there, but the Lakers weren't good, and everything that happened that year. We know about all that stuff. And in the 5 years since, which it's weird for me to say, it's been 5 years since Lonzo Ball was a Laker. It's been a bit of a wild ride there as well, from New Orleans not wanting him back, but him still being worth as a average starting point guard money at $20 million a year, to obviously now with all the injuries. It's just been a wild ride so far.
I think one of the biggest disappointments too with these injuries, and if they continue to pile up, is that in many ways Lonzo Ball was a ascending player. You look at his career 3-point percentage, every single season he's been in the NBA, it's gone up. Last year before the injury, he was a 42% 3-point shooter. And talk about like the jump shot, that was the biggest question mark. That was the biggest thing he had to fix. He was a high-level defender. He still is, maybe. We don't know. I mean, it's hard to say because we haven't seen him on the court. Very lengthy, can cause problems at that position. One of those big point guards. In terms of free throw percentage, too, that was one of the big things that killed him his rookie year. A 45% free throw shooter when he came into the league. That was up to 75% last year. 78 his last year in New Orleans. He had made all these improvements. And in many ways, so once you get past the LeVar Ball story, I thought that he's starting to become a liked player around the league. People were slowly starting to buy in. I was actually listening to Demar DeRozan talk on JJ Redick's podcast, and he says one of the big question marks why he was kind of down on Chicago was they didn't have a point guard. Well, insert Lonzo Ball. Once you get Lonzo into Chicago, then DeMar was more open to the possibility of signing there. And we saw how good he was early on. In fact, the Bulls, how good they were early on when all 3 of those guys, Zach, DeMar, and Lonzo, were on the court. I'd like to see him back on the court this season. For what it's worth, again, going back to the point, the Bulls say they are confident that he can get back to that level. Like I said, 42% 3-point shooter, 75% free throw. What do you think of Lonzo if he does get healthy, come back and able to replicate those numbers? Do you think we will see Lonzo ever ascend to an all-star level player in this league?
That's a difficult question because if he is ever going to be an all-star, it's going to be one of those weird one-off situations where he makes an all-star just because either he's a replacement or he's like just the second best player on a team that had a really great start to the season, and so they feel obligated to put him in there. I'm going to say no, but I'm playing the probabilities on this. I'm not saying it's impossible. I'm saying it's improbable at this point. And at the same time, like, that doesn't mean Lonzo Ball is going to totally flame out. He's already made his money. Like, Lonzo Ball got paid $80 million by the Chicago Bulls, and he's proven that he's a starting caliber point guard in the NBA. And Ricky Rubio's made a 15-year career out of that. Harrison Barnes has made a 15-year career out of that. Like, Lonzo Ball is going to be around in some capacity for the next 8 to 9 years. It just may not look like what everyone thought Lonzo Ball was going to be when he was picked ahead of Jason Tatum. And you mentioned something about DeMar DeRozan and Bulls point guards. I want to shout out my friend Jason Pat over at the Cash Consider Cast. It's Blue Wire. They do Bulls coverage. It's pretty good. Since Derrick Rose's injury in 2011, the Bulls have had a bit of a curse when it comes to their starting point guard, because only 3 times has a point guard played in 75% of the games since 2011, and only 4 times has a point guard played in 60% of the games for the Chicago Bulls. And that's a long line. It goes from Derrick Rose to Rajon Rondo to Chris Dunn to Kobe White to now Lonzo Ball. It's just been like injury cycles over and over and over again for Bulls point guards. And obviously Lonzo Ball isn't the heartbeat of the Chicago Bulls, but they are better when he's out there on the floor playing point guard.
Is it too early to attach the bust label to Lonzo?
I'm going to say too early. Because by definition of bust, we think of people who absolutely flame out. And Lonzo Ball is going to be in that, what I like to call the Hall of Good. He's going to be a good NBA basketball player, and only with the expectations of where he was drafted and Magic Johnson saying they were going to put a Ball jersey up in the rafters of Los Angeles, and Laker fans all like willing to burn down the Staples Center if they didn't draft Lonzo Ball. Only within the context of everything that happened in 2017 does Lonzo Ball look like a bust. But man's going to make $150 to $200 million in his career and play for 15 years in the NBA. I'd say that's a pretty successful career.
What do you make of this latest development in Lonzo Ball's injury? How do you think it affects the Bulls season? Drop below that in the comment section below. Leave a like on the video, subscribe to the channel, follow us on all social medias, all that info in our YouTube bio. Stay safe, happy, and healthy, and we'll see you on the next one.